On a single morning each November, South Korea reorganizes itself around one event. Military training flights are grounded. The Korea Exchange delays its opening bell by 1 hour. Police officers stand by to escort latecomers through city traffic to testing centers. The cause is the Suneung-day, the National University Entrance Examination, and roughly 500,000 students sit for it each year. Their results shape which university they attend, and in many cases, the arc of everything that follows. Here is the question that 30 years of evidence now forces us to ask. If this system produces this much pressure, why has every single government since 1994 announced a plan to reform it? And why has not one of them succeeded? The scale of Korea's private education industry measures the pressure more honestly than any policy document. Statistics Korea reports that Korean families spent approximately 26 trillion won on private tutoring in 2023, a market that has expanded in almost every year for which records exist, even as consecutive governments pledge to shrink it. Around 78% of elementary, middle, and high school students attend private academies known as Hagwons, typically finishing their last session at 10 or 11 at night. 7 consecutive presidential administrations have each introduced a flagship reform of the exam. The test has been restructured, reweighted, and redesigned multiple times across those 7 terms. And yet, private education spending has continued its upward climb. Korea's household expenditure on private tutoring, measured as a share of income, remains among the highest of any organization for economic cooperation and development member country. The gate has been rebuilt repeatedly. The crowd pressing against it has only grown larger. To understand why reform keeps failing, it is necessary to understand what the exam is actually deciding and why those decisions carry such weight. South Korea emerged from the Korean War in the 1950s with its cities flattened, its institutions destroyed, and almost no natural resources to fall back on. Education became the one reliable mechanism for social ascent in a country where most other paths had been erased. Decades later, that logic calcified into culture and then into institutional structure. A degree from one of the 3 elite universities, Seoul National, Korea, and Yonsei, collectively known by the acronym SKY, remains a meaningful predictor of salary, career trajectory, and social standing. Corporate recruitment in Korea has historically screened applications by university name before reading any other credential. When the rewards behind the gate are this concentrated, the pressure on the gate becomes a structural feature of the system, not a flaw to be patched. Reforming the exam format, adjusting the balance between essay questions and multiple choice items, changing what subjects are included, does not touch that underlying architecture. The exam is not the source of the pressure. It is the most visible surface where the pressure shows. The costs of this structure have become measurable at a national scale. South Korea recorded a total fertility rate of 0.72 in 2023, the lowest figure of any country for which comparable data exists. When government surveys ask young Koreans why they are not having children, the financial and psychological burden of raising a child through the education system appears consistently among the top answers. Youth mental health has drawn increasing attention from international researchers. South Korea's suicide rate among teenagers and young adults remains among the highest recorded in the OECD. The inequality dimension is equally visible. Higher income families spend proportionally more on Hagwons and private tutors, effectively purchasing better odds on an examination officially designed to be fair. Each round of reform has promised to level this playing field. Each round has left the gap structurally intact, often widening it as wealthier families adapted faster to whatever new format the government introduced. Korea's 30-year reform cycle exposes a pattern that recurs in credentialing systems across very different societies. When a country concentrates its most valued rewards, income, security, social recognition, behind a single narrow gate, that gate becomes nearly impossible to reform in isolation. Parents and students respond rationally to the incentives placed in front of them. Adjusting the shape of the gate without changing what waits on the other side simply redirects the pressure rather than releasing it. This dynamic is not uniquely Korean. It appears in bar examination cultures, in civil service examination systems across France, Japan, and China, and in elite university admissions in the United States. In each case, the intensity of competition at the gate reflects the steepness of the reward cliff behind it. The most durable education reforms in recent history have been reforms of that reward structure, broadening the paths that lead to a stable and dignified life, not redesigning the entrance exam for those paths. Korea's governments have spent 30 years rebuilding the gate. That is the one thing they have consistently not tried.